Associated Press. The Earth Summit, excerpts from speech by Bush on Action Plan. New York Times, June 13, 1992. Bates, David, Assistant to the President and Secretary to the Cabinet. Draft Memorandum to Heads of Agencies. July 14, 1989. Bernthal, Frederick M. Letter to Professor Bert Bolin. July 5, 1990. Bernthal, Frederick M. Memorandum to Richard T. McCormick, Under-Secretary-Designate for Economic Affairs, attached background material. February 9, 1989. Bernthal, Frederick M. Memorandum to the Secretary of the Department of State, Review of Key Foreign Policy Issues, the Environment. February 27, 1989. Briefing for Governor Sununu, Preparations for the First Framework Convention Negotiating Session, Washington, D.C., February 4, 1991. November 7, 1990. Bromley, D. Allen. Memorandum to Governor Sununu, the NRC Evans Report. April 8, 1991. Bromley, D. Allen. Memorandum to John H. Sununu, possible group from whom to obtain reaction to the NAS/Evans Report. April 18, 1991. Bromley, D. Allen. Memorandum to John H. Sununu, Sea Level Change and Environmental Matters. June 14, 1990. Bromley, D. Allen, and Ed Holliday. Memorandum for Governor Sununu, Climate Change Framework Convention meeting at 9:30 Wednesday morning. January 23, 1991. Bromley, Allen, and Stephen Dzansky. Memorandum for Fred Bernthal et al., Meeting of Global Change Strategy Task Force. May 21, 1990. Bush, George H. W., Presidential Address, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, Georgetown University. February 5, 1990. Bush, George H. W., Remarks on Signing the Energy Policy Act of 1992 in Maurice, Louisiana. October 24, 1992. Bush, George H. W., Remarks on Signing the Natural Gas Wellhead Decontrol Act of 1989. July 26, 1989. Carr, Donald A., Acting Assistant Attorney General. Memorandum to Kenneth Yale, CEQ Global Climate Change Directive. June 23, 1989. Climate Surprises, Hearing before the Subcommittee on Science, Technology, and Space of the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. 101st Congress. May 8, 1989. Council on Environmental Quality. Environmental Quality, the 20th Annual Report of the Council on Environmental Quality together with the President's Message to Congress. Washington, D.C., 1990. Council on Environmental Quality. Environmental Quality, the 23rd Annual Report of the Council on Environmental Quality together with the President's Message to Congress. Washington, D.C., January 1993. Dzansky, Steve. Memorandum for Chris Dawson et al., Letter on IPCC Conclusions Paper. August 7, 1990. Energy Policy Act of 1992, Pub. L. 102-486. October 24, 1992. Global Change Working Group. Memorandum for the Domestic Policy Council, Framework Convention on Climate Change. January 22, 1991. Hill, Allen, Chairman, Council on Environmental Quality. Memorandum to Heads of Federal Agencies, Draft of Guidance to Federal Agencies regarding consideration of global climate change in preparation of environmental documents. June 21, 1989. Institute of Medicine, National Academy of Sciences, and National Academy of Engineering. Policy Implications of Greenhouse Warming. Washington, D.C., National Academy Press, 1991. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Climate Change, the IPCC Scientific Assessment. Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 1990. Lower, David W. Letter to Mr. John Sununu, Chief of Staff. July 30, 1991. Maynard, Nancy G. Memorandum to D. Alan Bromley, J. Thomas Ratchford, Environment Update, week of May 26 and June 3, 1991. June 3, 1991. Michaels, Patrick, and Robert Bottling, Jr. Letter to the Honorable George H. Bush. February 1, 1991. Mitchell, George J. et al. Letter to Lee Thomas, Administrator, Environmental Protection Agency. September 12, 1986. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Reports to the nation on our changing planet, the climate system. Winter 1991. NCAR UCAR. Stephen Schneider, An Extraordinary Life. July 21, 2010. PW Environment Group The History of Fuel Economy. April 2011. Porter, Roger B. Memorandum for the President, the Second World Climate Conference. October 23, 1990. Shadekoff, Philip. Scientist says Budget Office altered his testimony. New York Times, May 8, 1989. Smith, Richard J. Confidential Information Memorandum to the Secretary, United States Department of State, Preparations for an International Conference on the Environment. May 16, 1989. Solar Energy Research Institute. CO2 emissions from coal-fired and solar electric power plants. May 1990. Sununu, John. Letter to David W. Lower. August 20, 1991. The White House and the Greenhouse. New York Times, May 9, 1989. United Nations. United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. 1992. U.S. Congress, Office of Technology Assessment. Changing by Degrees, Steps to Reduce Greenhouse Gases, OTA 0482. Washington, D.C., U.S. Government Printing Office, February 1991. U.S. Department of Energy. National Energy Strategy, Powerful Ideas for America. Washington, D.C., February 1991. U.S. Department of Energy. The Economics of Long-Term Global Climate Change, a Preliminary Assessment. Report of an Interagency Task Force, Washington, D.C., September 1990. U.S. Department of State. PRD 12/Global Climate Change Policy Decision Paper. U.S. Department of State. Remarks by the Honorable James A. Baker III, Secretary of State, before the Response Strategies Working Group, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. January 30, 1989. U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Inventory of U.S. Greenhouse Gas Emissions and Sinks, 1990 to 2016. 2018. U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Policy Options for Stabilizing Global Climate, Report to Congress. December 1990. U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The Potential Effects of Global Climate Change on the United States. Washington, D.C., December 1989. U.S. General Accounting Office. Energy Conservation, DOE's efforts to promote energy conservation and efficiency. Washington, D.C., April 1992. U.S. General Accounting Office. Energy Policy, Options to Reduce Environmental and Other Costs of Gasoline Consumption. Washington, D.C., September 1992. U.S. General Accounting Office. Global Warming, Administration Approach Cautious Pending Validation of Threat. Washington, D.C., January 1990. U.S. General Accounting Office. Global Warming, Emission Reductions Possible as Scientific Uncertainties Are Resolved. Washington, D.C., September 1990. U.S. General Accounting Office. Greenhouse Effect, DOE's programs and activities relevant to the global warming phenomenon. Washington, D.C., March 1990. Weisskopf, Michael. Bush was aloof in warming debate. Washington Post, October 31, 1992. Make a donation today. The world's only nonprofit public interest law firm dedicated exclusively to securing the legal rights of youth to a healthy atmosphere and safe climate, based on the best available science.